Do not play League of Legends. This is what the majority of the 1,000 plus hour community would say. But why is that? Hello, I'm Bizzleberry and I've been playing League of Legends for over 13 years. Why does that sound like I'm in an AA meeting? Yes, I've been playing this game for 13 years. And even though I hate this game, I despise it. I wish I had never played it. By God, I love it. And I'm still addicted to it, and it's given me a job, and I found friends, made a community. What I'm saying is, do play it. But this video has been made to make you aware of all the good and all the bad in League of Legends as of 2023. We're going to break this video down into bite-sized chunks for you to easily digest. And these are, what is League of Legends? Is it pay to win? Gameplay difficulty, community, updates, fun, and a conclusion. Now, what is League of Legends? Now, League of Legends is a 5v5 game. You can play against players, or you can actually play against bots. There's a misconception that people generally play against other players, but there's a huge chunk of the community actually that only play against bots. But generally, League of Legends is a 5v5 game where each player has an individual role and they get to choose a specific champion to kind of cater to that role easier. The roles are top lane, mid lane, bottom lane, and jungle. Note I've only just said 4 roles there, but there's 5 players in each team. That's because in the bot lane, there are 2 players down there working together. So the bot lane is usually a 2v2 situation. The mid lane is a 1v1. The top lane is a 1v1. And the jungle is, well, no one knows what they do. But hey, they're there. So the objective of the game is to kill the enemy Nexus while protecting your own. And you have to kill structures in order in a lane to be able to have access to that Nexus. And now in order to be able to kill the structures, generally you're going to be killing minions to obtain experience and gold, and you'll use that gold to buy items in the shop in your base. And these items make your character stronger. Killing minions give you experience, so you can invest that more into abilities, and then you can use those abilities to crush your enemies and drink their blood. Well, that would be true if you're Vladimir. He drinks blood. Once you've acquired your items and killed your minions and defeated the enemy Nexus, which takes around about 25 minutes to 30 minutes on average per game, you've won the game. And then you sign up for your next match. You can pick a different champion if you wish, and then everything starts again at the beginning. So every single game is like playing an MMORPG, but the server has reset for everybody. So you start level 1 again, everyone else is level 1, you fight, you get gold, you buy items again, all the way from the beginning again, make your character stronger, and then once the game's over, that's it, you start again, and then 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 again, until you realize it's been 13 years since you first pressed that play button. Yeah. So that is the basics of League of Legends, 5v5. Sticking into your own lane, killing turrets, acquiring golds, and just killing the enemy Nexus. To help you kill the Nexus as well, you've also got some neutral objectives in the river. You've got Herald and Baron, and also dragons. Without diving into these too much, the Herald basically gives you a buff when she dies, and then you can use that in a lane to help destroy structures. You've got Baron Nashor. When your team kills Baron Nashor, and that's getting the killing blow, the last hit, your whole team that is alive during killing Baron gets the Baron buff. And when you're standing near your minions, they become stronger, which means they can take those turret hits a little bit easier for you to be able to kill structures. And then there's dragons. There's 6 different types of dragons, all providing you and your team permanent buffs that don't disappear when you die. If you're able to acquire 4 of a dragon, then you get its soul, which enhances your team's power even more. And then once a team has killed 4 dragons, the only dragon that spawns after that is Elder Dragon, and if you get the last hit on Elder Dragon, the teammates that are alive also get a mega buff as well. So basically killing the neutral things in the river are pretty important and is largely primarily the jungler's job, as they have a special summoner ability that they can use called Smite, which allows them to do a lot of damage to the objective to try and get that as a last hit. So that is a very basic rundown to League of Legends. There are around about 160 champions in the game. So that's basically each kind of unit that you decide to choose and pick in as you're going into game. There are 160 of those that you can choose. And that really largely amounts to the difficulty that goes into the game, which we'll be talking about in part 3 of this. But each champion generally has 4 abilities. There are some exceptions. You generally have 3 basic abilities and then an ultimate, which you unlock at level 6. And the ultimate, as you would imagine, can greatly change how a team fight is played out or a situation is played out. But the cooldown on the ultimate is generally a lot longer. Now, when playing League of Legends, even when you're playing against bots, you will always need an internet connection. However, the system requirements are pretty low. They haven't changed a huge amount since the game was released 13 to 14 years ago. You can generally get away with running it on quite a potato system. There are many people playing this on like laptops, super old laptops, super old desktop PCs. Generally, the game in terms of accessibility, it's free to play, system requirements are pretty low, and even your internet connection doesn't necessarily have to be the best in terms of speeds, it just kind of needs to be stable. And that moves us on. Is League of Legends paid to win? Generally speaking, for what most people would regard as paid to win, League of Legends is not pay to win. You can buy things inside the game. Game is free to play, as mentioned before. So it doesn't cost a penny to download the game, play it, and you can do everything that you'd want to do in the game. You'll be able to unlock every single champion for free just by playing the game. You get a lot of champions given to you as well for free as a new player when you're first starting out in the game. All the system requirements are introduced to you one at a time. You get new summoner abilities over time as well. You wouldn't even be able to pay for those with real life money if you tried. You can get XP boosts, but that's not XP boosts in regards to your actual when you're playing inside the game. That's for outside. So your account XP does go up. And if you get level ups on your account, then you do unlock more freebie things like capsules which contain champion shards, and you can disenchant those shards for blue essence or use your blue essence to convert a shard into a permanent champion. Sometimes you can be given emotes, wards, champion skins, although they are random, so you can actually acquire cosmetics for some of the champions that you may own, but it's not guaranteed, and that's all kind of random. So the main things that you would be spending real life money on are primarily skins. There were some skins in the past that were deemed as pay to win, where it's hard to see graphically what the abilities were doing because the spell effect might be changed with a different skin. But generally, Riot has done a reasonably good job at making sure that skins don't actually give you an advantage. Some skins, I would argue, can give you a disadvantage compared to just using the base skin. The skins are purely cosmetic. They don't give you any raw stat value or anything like that. But there is a slight argument to be made that some abilities with certain skins could pose a potential issue and could. But I've never really had a problem in a league game apart from one champion, which was Yellow Shen Ultimate, which I found incredibly difficult to see. That's the only issue I've ever had with a particular skin in a game. Also, you could be determined to call it pay to win. Instead of acquiring some of the champions for free, you can pay real life money to obtain them. I would highly encourage you not to, unless there's a champion in particular you really want to play now. There are some champions that are obviously going to be stronger than other champions, but because of the wide variety of champions in the game and how many champions you can acquire quite easily and cheaply with in-game currency anyway, I would say that it's a very weak point overall to say that buying champions with money is pay to win, but the argument can be there, and you're more than welcome to save up to buy any champion in League. Some champions cost more than others because they were released more recently. I wouldn't say any of the champions that were released more recently are any more powerful than champions that were in the game 10, 13 years ago, for example. And some champions that are particularly old, around the 13 to 10 year mark, do end up getting reworked for free, so they become more relevant to the game state as well. So Riot in general have generally made League of Legends a very fair game to play if you don't spend any money in. But let's be real, you're probably going to be buying all of the Lux skins as soon as you start playing Lux. That brings us on to gameplay difficulty. Now, the MOBA genre, what League of Legends is generally known as the hardest genre to get in terms of the multiplayer aspect. This is because not only do you have to be reasonable at mechanical skill at the game, which means reacting to abilities and landing your own abilities, but also as you play, you will acquire more knowledge of what abilities do, what abilities look like, and there's 160 champions in the game, and that requires you to kind of know what each one of those does, which as a new player going into League of Legends can be particularly overwhelming. My one advice for you on this is just try and play as many different champions as possible that you have access to early on, just to kind of get a general feel of what kind of champions do. It's going to be like an upward curve for sure, and the first few games that you do, you're going to have no idea what the hell is going on. Just try and focus on what your champion does and what your champion can do, and figure out what the thing that you're playing is doing, and then you'll come across some champions that are played more often than others, so you'll get the hang of, oh, that champion does a grabby thing, so I'll make sure I don't get grabbed by that champion. But that's kind of the gist of it, and that you'll be working with that for quite some time. So the gameplay difficulty is largely knowledge based, and there is a decent mechanical aspect to it as well, depending on what kind of role that you're playing. AD carry, which is the physical damage rangers, are basically deemed as the hardest one to play in the game. You're in that 2v2 situation in the bot lane, and you're kind of fragile for the majority of the game, and pinpointing your auto attacks onto in certain situations can be really difficult, and because you're so squishy, it's really punishing to play at times. Generally the easier champions to play, or the easier roles to play, I would advise you to probably play like mid lane or support. So mid lane allows you to kind of focus in and hone in on that 1v1 in the center of the lane. There's lots of caster kind of champions in that role that get played, all kind of assassin-y types. You might get ganked by a jungler, so it might turn the situation from a 1v1 to a 1v2, but generally it's a little bit less hectic than the other lanes. Otherwise, you can kind of play the support role, which is that 2v2 situation in the bot lane, but you're playing the support, babysitting the AD carry. But generally the abilities, if you've played like World of Warcraft or any kind of MMORPG and kind of understand what a healer does, or kind of what even a traditional tank does, the support can be kind of either one of those things depending on what you're playing. So if you're playing an enchanter like Sona, for example, you're hanging back further and just healing and shielding allies, which is kind of like a traditional MMORPG healer. Or you could be a traditional MMORPG tank in the support role and play something like a Leona or a Nautilus, where you're kind of like a front line for your team doing crowd control as well. And so the one basically primarily taking all the damage. You can kind of be a lot of different roles in the support role. You can even be a magic damage user as well. There's a lot of versatility, and if you're coming from an MMORPG background, or if you have played like an RPG, then you're probably going to find something that you like in that support role and relate to from games that you've played previously. Part 4. Community. Now, this is kind of the elephant in the room. If you've heard anything about League of Legends, if you're a gamer, if you've played other games, League of Legends is usually talked into the context of it's a really toxic game. People flame you. You're going to get flamed, and you're going to be sad by playing it because of all the flaming. And it's true. There is a lot of flaming that happens in League of Legends. Riot Games, the company that made League, has improved toxicity over the years. I remember back 13 years ago, things were very, very, very bad. And I mean very, very bad. So they have done a good job in a sense in terms of cleaning up the community. However, there are so-called toxic streamers that are allowed to stream still and kind of giving an image that it's okay to be toxic in League games and getting away with it, whether it's inting heavily in the top lane and claiming it's benefiting your team even though nobody wants to play against it or with it, or you got the straight up streamers that also flame teammates, telling them to go do certain things that we won't really speak about, and they don't get permabanned from the platform. So that kind of reinforces that it's okay to do that. It's funny to do that. So Riot definitely can do a huge amount in terms of in-game moderation still, and out-of-game moderation in terms of regulating streamers more in terms of what they're doing in their games. There are tools at your disposal to report people at the end of the games, and usually you get notification that something has happened to them, whether it's a timeout or that they've been banned. However, it is quite easy to acquire fresh accounts, which I don't recommend that you do, but there is a botting problem where bots level up accounts, they sell them for relatively cheap amounts, and then they join in ranked queue later on. Your account needs to be level 30 or higher, and you need to own a specific number of champions in order to be able to do ranked, and a lot of people use that to their main account gets banned for a week, 2 weeks, and they just buy another account, they jump straight into ranked, and there's no kind of IP tracking or anything like that. So it's not hard to get around being banned in League, and I think that's one of the fundamental issues that we have at the moment, where people can kind of get away by being vile. You do have mute tools at your disposal to mute those people, and I'd highly urge you, if you do play League of Legends, to mute other players that are flaming in your games. You can also set options where you can have it so that you completely ignore what the other people are doing, but what it comes down to is that if you're not playing against bots, if you're playing against humans, which you probably would want to do playing League of Legends, at some point another human, just like in real life, can be an ass. It's the reality of it, and whether or not that's something that you're able to put up with and honestly put up with in some cases, then League of Legends might not be the game for you. Part 5. Updates. Riot Games does a relatively good keeping the game fresh. I would say coming in as a new player, you have a huge amount of content to be able to experience. You've got 160 champions. You have lots of different potential scenarios happening in a League of Legends game, which keeps it fresh. Riot generally does a patch every 2 weeks, making some champions stronger, making some champions weaker, changing some items potentially as well, and usually there's 2 big patches, one at the end of the season and one in the middle of the season, to keep it as fresh as possible. Admittedly, in the last few years, Riot hasn't done a massive job, honestly, updating the game to keep it fresh for existing players, but if you've never played League of Legends, you're definitely going to get a few years of worth of content there, especially with patches coming in, changing the meta, making things different. So you would definitely get a few years minimum out of playing League of Legends as a fresh player. Part 6. Is it fun to play League of Legends? Yes. I mean, I've been playing this game for 13 years. There's been hundreds of thousands, millions of players all around the world playing League of Legends and having fun. I will say though, from the most veteran kind of hardcore players like me, fun is a hard word to necessarily use, but it's kind of, we've been playing this game for so long, we've invested our time and our knowledge learning this game for such a long time, that moving over towards a different game, even a different game in the same genre, you can take some fundamentals from it, but every MOBA game has a bunch of different champions that you would need to learn, so it would feel like the amount of time investment that you've taken from League wouldn't fully be able to translate into another game, and that's why you find a lot of people that have been playing the game for still for a long time is because they've had that time investment in the game and they don't particularly want to lose it. And you could maybe claim that that's like an addiction at some point. But honestly, there aren't that many other games like League of Legends, and there's a reason why League of Legends has been the #1 PC game for a really long time, occasionally battling out with like Fortnite and one or two other, PC games out there. But generally, League of Legends has been in the top 3 for 13 years, which is an incredible feat. And it still seems like it will probably be that way for at least the next 3 years at minimum incoming. Also, on the topic of fun, I thought it would be fun to ask my community why they play League of Legends, how they maybe even got into playing League of Legends. And we've got a fantastic Discord of over 3,000 people that play League. If you want to join that Discord, it's discord.gg/Bizzleberry. Make sure you verify by typing in your Twitch or your YouTube username in order to prove that you're not a robot. But we had a lot of comments, so thank you very much to everyone in the community for giving your thoughts on why you play a League of Legends. And there's a couple here that I would like to read out. There's one here by Peach. Peach spent a lot of time with this one, and it goes over some of the points that I've already made in the video. But I play League because it's a great way to connect and spend time with friends, and I've even met people through the game itself who've become really good friends of mine. I've made lots of great memories through our time playing. League being a free-to-play, up to 5-player, low graphic requirement game, but also being so fun, I think it gives a super unique position to be good for friend groups to get into. The competitive aspects of ranked gameplay also keep me playing League. It's really satisfying to work together as a team and put in effort and be rewarded with a win. The long-term aspects of trying to improve your own gameplay and train up as well as climb the ranks also keep me coming back to the game. In general, League was the first video game I've ever played a lot and got super invested in. So it always has a special place for me, getting me into a new hobby that I now enjoy so much. We also have comments from Sephi. I started playing League during the pandemic to keep in touch with friends, then made new friends through League, got into pro play. I think the game is fun with lots of different champions to play, a master to suit different playstyles. And I think that's the thing with League. You can have lots of fun in different aspects of the game, whether it's solo improvement, getting better at the game, climbing up the ranked ladder and seeing how high you can get, whether it's playing with friends in more casual modes like ARAM or normals, or doing bot games with new friends, or even watching esports, which is a massive scene which I used to take part of, but I know a lot of people like watching esports and getting together with their friends on Discord, watching the games and being able to play League of Legends and then seeing what the pros can do with the same kind of champions that you're playing can be really cool in terms of like learning new aspects of how to play the game. So there's lots of different angles and how you can get fun in League, depending on how much time you want to invest. If you've really got nothing better to do and you want a new main game, you can spend hundreds of thousands of hours in this game and not get bored. If you've got a full-time job, you can still play in the evenings, doing a couple of games every now and then, without necessarily drifting off of what the meta is and still being able to play the game. But I will say overall, if you want to have the most amount of fun playing League of Legends, firstly, is to not get tilted and just try and relax in your games. Even when other people are flaming, mute the people that need to. But also I would say that in terms of time investment, you would probably need to dedicate at least playing League maybe 2 to 4 games a week in order to be able to keep up in terms of what's happening around. So that's around about 1 to 3 hours investment per week, which I think most people would be able to do. But if that sounds like something that you don't really sound too keen of and having to play the game at least a few times a week ideally, in order to the game's always evolving, the meta's always evolving. Even when there's not like a new patch, sometimes a content creator might find out something kind of goofy that will happen with an interaction with like other champions, and then they suddenly get played as well. So there are lots of different aspects in terms of how you can enjoy League. And even when I stopped playing League for like a year or two in the middle because I had a child, I still watched esports, and that was a way for me to kind of keep up with what was going on. So there's lots of live streams, kind of like sports in a way, but esports being electronic. On Twitch, you can watch lots of pro games and stuff going on. Usually there's domestic games right now. There's also international events that happen, which are really interesting and engaging with the audience as well, if that's something that you want to get into. That leads me into the conclusion of League of Legends. The pros to League of Legends is that it's fun, as we've established quite a few times in this video. Otherwise, so many people wouldn't be playing it still. There's lots of content. There's loads of champions in each of the different roles, and also there's rotating game modes such as ARAM and Earth, and Riot have said that they're releasing a new game mode releasing in the summer 2023. There's a massive esports scene with League of Legends that has both domestic and international leagues, so that, say for example, if you play League in North America, you'll be able to watch some North American teams in your local times, and some teams to cheer on for when they take part in those international events. League can feel really rewarding to play. Doing well in a team fight, taking an objective from the enemy team, getting a few kills can definitely feel really rewarding, and it feels good to then being able to buy items to make your character feel even stronger in the next encounter. You can get free cosmetics and champions from playing League. You don't feel like you have to necessarily spend money on the game in order to get some of the cosmetics. Although it is RNG, it is nice that a free-to-play game can give you a good chunk of colourful skins or wards or emotes for free without having to spend a penny. There is tons of guides online to help you out if you do get stuck. There's loads of content creators, including myself, that have made guides on League. So if you ever get stuck, you can always just do a quick Google search or YouTube search in order to find out the information. There's loads of cool champions with their own unique lore. There's even a TV series called Arcane, which does feature some of those League of Legends champions, and there are going to be more TV series to do with the League universe. So there's a wealth of story and lore behind the champions, which makes the kind of champions that you're playing feel a little bit more unique compared to some of the other games. There are constant updates. There's usually a minor patch every 2 weeks, and a much more major patch at the start of the year and in the middle of the year. These big patches can change fundamentally how a specific role is played by changing up items or specific champions, or just generally changing the values of champions to basically shift the meta. Also, the game is free to play and there's no pay to win, which I think is a huge plus. Cons: League has a general toxic player base, and the game is renowned to be having toxic players, particularly in the solo queue aspect. Although there are tools to mute people and report them at the end of the game, it doesn't obviously help that they've already ruined your gameplay experience by potentially wasting 25 minutes of your time. There's a hard starting difficulty to League, and the game overall is just generally on the harder end compared to some other games. There is a time investment that you will have to spend in terms of being able to keep up with the difficulty too. The League client can have bugs. The League client is 13 years old. Although it has received a lick of paint, there are bugs that occasionally happen that do end up having a game-breaking experience, but generally it's pretty rare that it breaks the whole game. You can't view skins easily in the client, so if you are interested in buying a League of Legends skin, you do have to kind of go watch a YouTube video on the skin in order to see it. It is pretty stupid, and I don't know why Riot hasn't included an easier way to see skins in the client, but it's the way it is. Requires a connection to be always online. A steady, stable connection is required in order to not drop out of a game. Buying skins can be particularly expensive. Riot has just recently increased the prices of buying Riot points, which is the currency used to buy skins. So skins have been more expensive this year in particular compared to previous years. Has a battle pass system and gacha loot boxes. Now all of this stuff doesn't mean that you'll get a pay to win experience, but in order to get some exclusive skins and making it so that FOMO is a thing, there are some things that can only be accessed by the battle pass system and potentially from some gacha loot boxes. Players can illegally buy new accounts to smurf or be toxic, so we didn't really address smurfing too much, and that is basically when an experienced player goes into a new player lobby and just rolls over the new players and ruins the new player's experience. That can happen and probably will happen at least a couple of times in your League games. Gameplay loop is generally the same. You're always going to be starting level 1, reaching a power spike, completing the game, and then starting again back to level 1. It's part of the unique charm of playing a game like this, but it's also potentially boring for some people if they want to focus on leveling up their character and stuff over multiple days or years rather than having to start again every half an hour. I hope this video kind of gives you a better understanding of League of Legends. If you are looking to get into League, and if you do have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below, and either myself or a member of the community will get back to you on that. Or you can join the discord.gg/Bizzleberry. Feel free to ask any questions there. I also stream on twitch.tv/Bizzleberry. More than welcome to help anyone there too. I'm primarily a support main, but because I've been playing the game for such a long time, I can help out in the other kind of roles as well. Primarily more about AD carry and maybe mid lane. Even though I've been playing this game for 13 years, my ability in the top lane and jungle are pretty damn bad, and I haven't even learnt the ins and outs of every single one of the 160 champions in the game, even though I've been playing the game for such a long time, because I basically have chosen like areas of the game to focus and learn and try and master. So there's always something to be better at in League of Legends, and the fun is trying to craft out and mold out like what you want to do in the game and what you want to be good at. So all the best. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. So, do you not play League of Legends? Well, that's up to you at the end of the day, but I'd recommend that you give it a go. All the best berries, take care, and see you soon for another video. Bye.